Let me ask you all a question. What do you all think would happen if you have a person, let's say a young man, late teens and early 20s, and they've completely screwed up their life? They're the dead end. They're looking at by the time they're 25, they're going to be dead or spending a long time in jail. And you throw them a lifeline. You offer them a path to redemption. They take you up on that offer. And just when they can almost touch that redemption, you slam the door in their face, kick their feet out from under them, and send them back to square one. What do you all think would happen? Well, in one case, that's how we got Billy the Kid. Let's talk about the movie Young Guns and the legend of Billy the Kid.
Architectural Outcast.
Welcome to the Architectural Outcast, that little old channel from Texas. There have been some notoriously bad accents in the history of film. Dick Van Dyke's Cockney accent in Mary Poppins, Rock Hudson's Southern accent in The Undefeated are two that quickly come to mind. And then there's Charlie Sheen's Southern accent in Young Guns. Blah! Somebody should have stuck a clothespin on his tongue the first time he whipped that out on set. Anytime you talk about fictional accounts of Billy the Kid, Wyatt Earp, Wild Bill Hickok, or any other historic figures from the Old West, there'll be that guy who speaks up and says, "These stories have nothing to do with reality. The real Billy the Kid was a cold-blooded murderer." Yeah, anytime you look into the historical events, you will find things are complicated. But I'm not talking about historic events. I'm talking about myths and legends. Young Guns opens with William Bonney involved in the shooting and running from a mob. He's saved by local rancher John Tunstall. Arriving at Tunstall's ranch, he learns that Tunstall likes to hire vagrants and runaways. But as Charlie Bowdry puts it, they can't be any old bum off the street. They need to be good with the iron, if you know what I mean. Tunstall's cowboys are known as regulators. They protect Tunstall's property. And it turns out that Tunstall is involved in a feud with the local corrupt political machine, the Dolan Murphy ring. Bonney forms a bond with Tunstall. He sees him as a surrogate father. But just as Bonney starts to get comfortable in his new life, Tunstall is murdered in front of him and the other regulators by the Dolan Murphy ring. The sheriff and his deputies were directly involved in the murder of Tunstall. The justice of the peace swore in the regulators as a posse and sent them out to bring in the murderers. Unfortunately, Bonney wasn't interested in courts and juries. He preferred a simpler and more direct method of dealing justice. Bodies started to stack up. The Lincoln County War was gaining national notoriety. Things really spiraled out of control when Dick Brewer, Tunstall's old foreman, was killed, allowing Bonney, now known as Billy the Kid in the press, to take control of the regulators. The movie culminates in the Battle of Lincoln. The Murphy-Dolan ring are able to trap the regulators in the home of McSween, Tunstall's old lawyer. Billy and the regulators are able to hold out for several days. This forces the Dolan Murphy ring to call out the army. The sheriff set fire to the McSween home. McSween is gunned down when he tries to surrender. In the confusion caused by the flame and smoke, Bonney and some of the regulators are able to escape. In one final act of retribution, Bonney kills Murphy before he finally flees. One of the things I think Young Guns gets right is Emilio Estevez's portrayal of Billy the Kid. By all accounts, he was rather reserved, quiet and soft-spoken, polite and friendly. If he wasn't pointing a gun at you, most people seemed to like him. Everything would change once bullets started to fly. It's like a switch was flipped. He would become incredibly aggressive. And there's no doubt about it. If he felt justified, he would kill you. Let's talk a little history for a minute. I'm of the opinion that it's more likely than not that Billy the Kid died at Pete Maxwell's place at the hands of Pat Garrett. Yes, there are anomalies. Why was Billy even at Pete Maxwell's place to begin with? Why did he speak in Spanish? Why was he carrying a type of gun that he was never known to carry? All of those can be explained away with reasonable explanations. But there's one thing I think we should never forget. There were only a handful of people who actually saw the body of Billy the Kid, and every single one of them, including the government, had a major incentive to declare Billy the Kid dead. Y'all realize we could solve this mystery in a matter of weeks. We know where Billy the Kid's mother is buried. We know where Billy the Kid is buried. We could compare their DNA and have an answer in no time. The state of New Mexico and the federal government won't allow it. And that gets to the reason why Billy the Kid had to have died at Pete Maxwell's place and why his story is still relevant today. Power. In a previous video, I talked about the relationship between hard power and soft power. I'll link it down in the description below if you all want to check it out. Whichever one we're talking about, to legitimately wield power, you need moral authority. The Lincoln County War exposed extreme political corruption. The longer the regulators were able to run around causing a ruckus, it brought more eyes on the situation. More people were asking questions. The official narrative wasn't able to hold up to the scrutiny. They couldn't sweep Tunstall and McSween's murders under the rug. Ultimately, the scandals brought down 2 territorial governments and damaged the federal government. Billy the Kid was becoming a sympathetic figure. He was gaining national support and his opinions carried weight. People were beginning to notice that a bunch of pissed off teenagers were causing the government a lot of problems. Even the army couldn't stop Billy the Kid. People started asking the question, what if some more mature and, shall we say, strategic thinkers started causing problems as well? Billy the Kid had to die, one way or another. And after his death, he had to have died at Maxwell's place. I mean, you wouldn't want the peasants to start to get the idea that they actually run the place after all. One of the things that Young Guns gets right are the regulators themselves. Tunstall hiring young men of dubious moral character with a history of living outside the law, that was a widespread and well-respected practice all across the West. Cowboys have been glamorized so much that we often forget that their job was brutally hard and dangerous. It required skill, courage, and the willingness to fight. Not everybody can do the job, and even fewer wanted to. So why not convince some of the wolves to guard the sheep? Or in this case, guard the cows. Here in Texas, there were some legendary ranches that only hired Billy the Kid types. And these young wolves, as long as they worked for these ranches, they were expected to go to church on Sunday. Drinking, gambling, swearing, and definitely going to houses of ill repute were all forbidden. In their free time, they were expected to learn how to read, write, do math, and have a basic understanding of world history and current events. There was a recognition that everybody didn't get a good start in life. And when you're young, it's easy to go down the wrong path. But if you went to work for one of these ranches, worked hard, followed the rules, kept your nose clean, in a couple of years, you would become a respected member of the community. Sounds like a pretty sweet deal for these young men, right? So what do the ranches get out of the deal? Well, besides having a bunch of wolves who probably know the wolves out in the hills guarding their cattle. Well, there were 2 benefits, a short term and a long term. Everyone benefited in the long term. Look at the list of cowboys who rode for these ranches. You'll find the names of future ranchers, businessmen, leaders of industry, and politicians. Offering a path for redemption worked. In the short term, the ranches received loyalty unto death. I'm going to repeat that. By offering a path to redemption, these ranches received loyalty unto death. Anybody see how this could go sideways? People who have nothing, they aren't dangerous. The most dangerous human being in the world is somebody who has lost everything. They feel like they have nothing left to lose. Mix in a little political corruption, add in a dash of injustice, and you got a recipe for a Billy the Kid. You convince a wolf to become a sheepdog, and you promise it, if it does it long enough, it will become a valued member of society. The wolf keeps their end of the bargain, and just when they're ready to receive their reward, you snatch it from them, and you kick them and beat them, throw them back to the other wolves. And then you're surprised when that wolf gets up and then comes after you with all the tenacity and viciousness only a wolf has. There are two lessons to be learned from the legend of Billy the Kid, why we're still fascinated with this story all these years later. First, institutional power is an illusion. Second, be careful who you screw over. Mess with the wrong person, you might have to pay a price you're not ready to pay. George Carlin is wrong on this one. Yeah, it's probably a good idea to keep an eye on the guy that's banging his machete on the bar, screaming, "I'm going to kill somebody." But more often than not, the really dangerous one in the room is the quiet guy over in the corner reading a book. Anyhow, I hope I've given you all something to think about, and until next time, you all be safe. If you're still here, I really appreciate it. While you're at it, why don't you like the video, subscribe to the channel, click that notification bell. You can hear me yammer on about something else next time.
Please like and subscribe. Please leave a comment.